Update. Am I the a-hole for stopping paying my ex's bills? Original post. My ex and I split up about 3 years ago. No bad feelings. We just drifted apart until we realized that we were now co-parents, not husband and wife anymore. We have 2 kids, 13 and 10. My ex used to work as an infrastructure engineer, and I was working as an owner-driver with my own truck. Around the time the kids were born, we decided she would be a stay-at-home mom. The trucking was going well, and I had bought a second truck and a van, so I stayed home doing all the planning and admin while I had the trucks and van out. When the youngest started school, my ex went back to work part-time, but her time out of the workforce had hit her really hard. She needed to relearn a lot and basically couldn't get back in at her previous level. She had to pretty much start over. Over the years, the haulage firm had expanded, and frankly, it was getting a bit of a pain. We were too big for where we were and needed to move to a new yard, so I sold it off for a reasonable sum and set up freelancing as a developer. I did computer science at uni. We both had relatives pass away, leaving us property and money, so we were mortgage-free on the family home. When we split, I moved into a house I had inherited. We basically split the assets in half and split the costs of the kids' activities in half. When we were sitting down looking at the money, she concluded that she would need to go back to work full-time and would miss time with the kids. Since they were with me the 3 days she worked and every other weekend, I felt bad because if she hadn't been out of work for so long, she'd be in a better place career-wise. So I offered to cover half of her bills until the kids went off to uni. She didn't want to at first, but I said that she had helped me out and had now suffered as a result, so it was only fair that I return the favor. It was helping my kids out, and I didn't want her to run down the savings that were essentially the kids' inheritance. This situation worked out about as well as it could. We co-parent happily. Everything is good. Until she met a new guy. He's someone we knew from way back, but we lost touch with. They started dating. She's really happy. And she's talking about him moving in. I'm okay with that. The kids get on with him and I trust her judgment. I know she wouldn't put anything ahead of the kids. So I said to her, if Lato's moving in, you won't need the money toward the bills, will you? She said no, she wouldn't, but she was thinking of putting it into the kids' accounts. Great idea. I'd put some on their cards for pocket money and the rest in their savings. So that was what we agreed. But when the new chap found out, he went up the wall and accused me of being controlling and committing financial abuse. A few of our friends have also said that he's got a point and that it looks like jealousy. So, am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. Looks like he was interested in the free ride. And now that the gravy train has stopped, he's all upset. Your ex had no issues with the money stopping because she isn't interested in taking advantage of you. And 2 adults living together should be able to cover their own expenses. But new boyfriend doesn't want that. Even court-ordered alimony stops if the recipient remarries, no? It depends on where they live, but in many places now even living together is enough to adjust or cancel alimony. As too many people were taking advantage of the marriage loophole, living with their significant other and simply refusing to marry so it wouldn't cancel the alimony. So many places have changed their laws to state that if the person receiving alimony is living with another person, it can or will impact alimony. Not the a-hole. Tell anyone moaning that you pay child support for your children, not grown men looking for a free ride. He'll already be saving in rent as the house is paid for. Is he really looking for his bills and groceries to be paid for by you too? If someone moves into another's home, they contribute to living there. That said, contribute too. Not pay half as your kids are eating the food and running up the utility bills. Agree with you except for the last part. It seems the kids live with OP about half the time, so I do not see why he would have to pay for food or utilities, unless the ex also pays for similar costs made at OP's house, which I assume she does not. Because my ex spent so long out of the workforce, she basically had to start over at the bottom, and it was a rough market post-COVID for network technicians. It was a choice of 3 days a week with good balance of time with the kids, but very tight budgets. Watching every penny, no treats kind of thing, versus 5 days a week. All that good stuff but not much time with the kids. so I offered to cover some of the bills so that she could stay part-time. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's money well spent. I think it was a nice thing to do. I don't understand why the boyfriend can't chip in for lodging, food, etc. It's starting to look like he didn't want to. Apparently, he was getting evicted and hadn't told my ex. My best mate reckons once he was in and settled, he'd get laid off. Edit/mini update. We have joint 50-50 custody of the kids, so I have no actual obligation to be paying anything. That said, I don't want my kids to miss out on their many and varied activities, so I continue to pay for half of those. Likewise, I offered the extra money to help with bills because I wanted my kids to benefit from time with both parents and to not have to live in a house where money was a worry. Some have mentioned the division of assets from inheritance and the sale of my business. These are mostly locked away in long-term investments, so they aren't readily available. We were perhaps unwise in doing this, but we saw it as the kids' inheritance. My ex would rather have worked more than dipped into that money for living costs. The ex came round for a cup of tea and a chat. It seems that Lado was indeed thinking she was his meal ticket. Apparently, he had suggested moving in, but had not told her that his landlord was ending his tenancy with a Section 21 to sell the property. When she started discussing money and his contribution, he asked why, since I was paying for the kids. So she told him that if he was living there, he needed to chip in, and that if he moved in, she couldn't keep asking me for money. She's upset, and I think that's going to be over. In the meantime, he's ranting to anyone who'll listen that I'm the typical evil jealous ex, and that I'm controlling her with money. Now for the full update 10 days later. Thanks for all the comments and advice. Just thought I would update you all on the last week. So, Lado turned out to have been getting kicked out of his place, not through any fault of his own. The landlord was selling, and he hadn't told my ex. Also, he works with my best mate, who told me that he's on incredibly thin ice and was on his last chance due to attendance issues. Me, the ex, and Lado got together at the weekend and had a long chat. The main points were: 1. If he is going to be her partner and live there, then he has to step up and contribute both financially and also with the children. 2. As regards the bills, both my ex and I had the expectation that another adult in the house would be contributing, meaning that bill money from me would be superfluous. 3. I agreed that stopping the money because someone moves in, and potentially restarting it if they move out, does look like it's controlling, although it was agreed that I didn't have that intent. 4. I said that I would continue giving my ex the money, and that if it was surplus to requirements, she would put it in the kids' accounts. I do trust her to do this. At that point, I left and went home thinking all was good. I'm on holiday with the kids this week, and I got a warning that the house alarm was going off. I rang my neighbor, and he went round and said that one of the windows had been smashed, and that my other car had all its windows smashed. I logged into my cameras on the iPad, and sure enough, it's Lado smashing the heck out of the car and throwing bricks at the window. Turns out that after I left, he and my ex had a major talk where she laid out some home truths and expectations, and when she didn't like the reaction she got, she ended it. So a couple of days later, he got angry and came round to my place and smashed it up. I obviously reported it to the police. With me being away, they spoke to me over the phone and asked me to send all the footage and a statement, and they'd speak to him that day. Turns out he got stopped on the way back from mine, was over the limit, and was sleeping it off in custody before he could be charged. Edit. I've seen a couple of comments about how I need to speak to my ex and tell her to be more careful. I 100% trust her judgment in who comes into the kids' lives. I was just as surprised by him as she was, and like most people, she's capable of learning from experience. Also, another edit, the Glaziers have been back out. Owe the lady next door big time for all the help she's been. And apparently the total bill just for the house is going to be about £7,000. That's not counting the car, which is an old Rover I was restoring, so I've no idea how much that will cost. Here's wishing Lado all the health, happiness, and success that he deserves. With him being locked up, he will for sure lose the job he was on thin ice at because of attendance. Though I guess if he goes to prison for destruction of property and not being able to pay for the damage, at least he'll have a roof over his head and 3 meals per day. This is Britain. He'll get fined, at most a low-level community order. He'll lose the job anyway because he will certainly be banned from driving. Some people just can't help themselves from self-sabotaging. I've got some sympathy to a certain extent because he suffers really badly with PTSD from when he was in Iraq for Operation Telek. But I was there too, and it's like, dude, we're all suffering, but you have to do something to help yourself, and he never has. Sounds like X's judgment might not be all that you thought it was. I wouldn't go that far. Look at how many women talk about how the mask of some dude only slips after they think they have her locked down. I volunteer with abused victims, and it's super common that everyone around the abuser thinks they are a great person until they themselves see the mask slip. He's one of these people that always manages to charm people. I think he's some sort of sociopath or narcissist. One question: why not just stay together and make life cheaper in these times? It seems co-parenting or cohabitating would be cheaper and better for the kids, even if you slept in different rooms. I get that neither would have total privacy. You two seem in your writing to get along so well. The short version is that we ended up being roommates that were looking after kids instead of husband and wife. We went to couples counseling and all that, and we came to the conclusion that it was too late for us as a couple, but we would still salvage the co-parenting, which after a lot of hard work we're managing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend after she became a stripper? I, 20 male, just broke up with my girlfriend, 21 female, and now I'm kind of wondering if I handled it wrong. We were together for almost a year. Everything was chill. We got along great, barely fought, and I really thought we were solid. Then a couple of weeks ago, she told me she got a new job as a stripper. At first I thought she was joking, but she was serious. She said she needed money and didn't want to keep working retail because the hours sucked and the pay was trash. I get it, she has bills, but I just didn't expect that to be the job she'd pick. She said it was just dancing, nothing extra, and that it was good money. She didn't act ashamed about it or anything. I didn't flip out or anything in the moment. I told her I didn't know how I felt about it and that I needed to think. She told me it's her body, her job, and she's not doing anything wrong, which, yeah, fair. But honestly, I couldn't get past it. I kept thinking about her dancing half-naked for random dudes, and it just didn't sit right with me. I started feeling weird every time I thought about it, like I wouldn't be able to fully support that and still feel good in the relationship. So a few days later, I told her I didn't think I could keep doing this. I said I respected her choice, but it just wasn't something I was cool with. She got really mad and said I was being judgmental and insecure, that I only liked her when it was convenient for me. I don't know, man. I didn't try to control her or tell her not to do it. I just said I couldn't be in a relationship where I felt like that all the time. Some of my friends say I'm being soft or overthinking it, but I really didn't want to fake being okay with something I wasn't. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with her after she started stripping? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She's free to take a job as a stripper, and you're free to not want to date a stripper. It's not like he said do this or I'll break up with you. He just stated he wasn't comfortable anymore and chose to move on. OP, you handled this well, and this isn't about control. She is upset, as are you. Lots of people would not want to date someone who is a stripper, and that's okay. We have to live in a way that we can live with. The thing is, there are many situations where neither party is in the wrong, but are still upset when the other party doesn't agree. This is one of those. He is not wrong for not wanting to be in a relationship with a stripper. She's not wrong in doing something to support herself. There is simply a disconnect. If she was a stripper when you started dating her, that's one thing. I dated a stripper and didn't have an issue. She was comfortable with it, didn't cross the line some do, wasn't an addict, etc. The thing is, according to her and other strippers I've known, it can drastically change a person, and they don't notice it while it's happening. Yes, there are straight up doing it for the great money people, but depending on the person, they can easily be drawn into the seedy side. It also depends on the club. their security, their awfulness, etc. There are a lot of factors to weigh, but you're not the a-hole for owning you're not comfortable with it and ending things. Your decision holds equal weight with her decision. Been there too. I was dating a really nice girl, didn't drink or anything. Within a year, she became a party girl, coke and all. She left the club she was working at and went to one where the guys could grab her. I left her, couldn't handle it anymore. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I feel more like her roommate than her husband? I'm 44 male, my wife is 42. We've been married for 7 years, together for 10. For the last year or so, I felt like we've been living parallel lives, coexisting in the same house but barely connecting. No real intimacy, barely any meaningful conversation. She comes home from work, immediately goes to the bedroom to scroll her phone or binge her shows, and I just exist in the background. I've tried initiating date nights, cooking dinners, even suggesting therapy, but it always ends with her saying she's too tired or not in the mood. Last week, after yet another night of her going to bed without even saying goodnight, I finally broke down and said, "I feel more like your roommate than your husband." She got really quiet, then really angry. She said I was guilt-tripping her and being manipulative, and that she's the one who has been carrying the emotional burden of the marriage for years. This shocked me. I thought I was the one trying to bridge the gap. She told me that if I feel like a roommate, maybe that's what I deserve because I haven't been the man she signed up for. I asked her what she meant, and she just said, "You used to try harder, now you just sulk." I didn't even know what to say to that. I left the house for a few hours just to clear my head. Now she's acting like I blew everything out of proportion, but I can't shake the feeling that something deeper is broken between us. I never meant to hurt her, I just wanted to tell her how I felt. But now I'm wondering if I was being selfish for saying it like that. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I feel like a roommate? Not the a-hole. You just said how you felt, and it clearly needed to be said. If the vibe is off for a year straight, someone's gotta speak up. That's not guilt-tripping. That's being honest. Sounds like y'all both feel unheard and it's catching up fast. This makes sense. Being honest about how you feel after a year of tension isn't guilt-tripping. It's overdue. Holding it in just lets resentment build. At least OP is trying to have a real conversation instead of pretending everything's fine. Nah man, not the a-hole. Feeling like a roommate in your own marriage is rough. Trust me, been there, done that. You gotta speak your truth, bro, but also gotta listen to hers. She may be going through some stuff too. Communication is key, my dude. See if she's up for therapy or at least a real heart-to-heart. Sending good vibes your way. Hang tough. Totally agree. OP needed to speak up, and now it's about making space to really talk it out. A heart-to-heart or therapy could help clear the air and maybe bring them back to each other.